This is the Amazing Education Podcast. Powered by the Ames Community School District, I'm your host, Eric Smith. On today's episode, we are joined by Ames High students Alina, Markutsya, and Andrew Besch. We're going to have an amazing conversation about the storm shelter, an Ames High student enterprise store, and all of the logistics that are required of operating a small business. Andrew and Alina, thanks for being on this episode of the Amazing Education Podcast. How are both of you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, so on today's episode, actually this is a first on a number of fronts. So this is our 18th episode of the Amazing Education Podcast, and it's the first time that I've actually had students on the podcast. It's the first time that we've been remote for a podcast, and it's the first time that I've actually had two guests on one podcast. So we are just checking all of these boxes all on this single podcast. But on today's episode, we're going to talk about the storm shelter. And these are the two students who are helping run, but I know that you guys don't do all of the work. But we're going to talk about the storm shelter at Ames High. So generally speaking, educate whoever is watching this or listening to this podcast, what is the storm shelter at Ames High?
It's a lot. Like, it's this whole store that we have in here. We sell, like, coffee, chips. We make our own T-shirts. We also do, like, custom T-shirt orders for, like, clubs, sports events, things like that.
Yeah, so it's, like, student-run and student-founded. Last year was the first year, but due to COVID, it was cut short. So this year is our real first year that we get to do this storm shelter. And we do a lot of assortment of jobs, all student-run. And we, like what Andrew said, we print shirts, we sell merchandise, and we sell food. Yeah, so it's a lot going on.
So this is sort of centered around a particular class that both of you are in. Is it the Enterprise 2 class?
Yep, Entrepreneurship 2.
Okay.
Yep.
And so how does this storm shelter link in with that particular class?
This is kind of the whole idea about, like, running, like, a business, even if it's something kind of small like this, where it's just like a student-run kind of school enterprise thing. But it just kind of gives us, like, experience and, like, kind of like what it would be like out, maybe in the future. If anyone in this class wants to, get into business more in the future, it'll be like a nice little help because you have that personal experience.
Yeah. So what brought you, Alina, interested in not only this class but being involved in the storm shelter as a whole?
Yeah, so before this year, I didn't know this was like an option for taking a class, and I really had an interest in business after I took Intro to Business my freshman year, and I was really excited that Entrepreneurship 2, we get to run the school store, and I want to kind of look into it as a career, maybe doing business. So this class kind of nurtured my motivation to keep going with business, and yeah.
So, Andrew, what piqued your interest in being part of it?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I took business economics, which was a really fun class, and then I took marketing and selling last year. So I've always been kind of interested in business, and I know I wanted to continue with it, at least through high school. And I saw that this class was an option, and I was talking to Mrs. Hales, who doesn't teach at the high school anymore, but she was my business teacher the past couple of years, and she told me it'd be a great opportunity running the school store, because this is also something that I want to pursue as a career. And she said it would be a great opportunity, and it is, and it's just a really fun class.
So, before I was setting up and before the two of you got in here, I'm taking a walk around the store, and I appreciate all the branding involved in all the T-shirts and, the blankets here, and there's some really cool woodworking stuff going on. So I love the branding, so you're spot on with that. But, in addition to the shirts, and we'll come back to the shirts, what else is being sold out of the storm shelter?
Like we mentioned earlier, we have, like, a lot of snacks. We do, like, chips, goldfish, fruit snacks. We have a fridge with Gatorade, Powerade. We have water in there. And then we also brew our own coffee, and we make smoothies as well, which are actually pretty good.
I was actually told to get one today.
They're pretty good. I like them.
So on a daily basis, I've been involved in some, small businesses and talking with people, and, people who may be real passionate about screen printing know that when you start a business, it's much more than just the screen printing part of it. So talk about, Alina, the business aspect of being involved in the storm shelter. What are some things that you're working on, maybe a daily basis, a weekly basis?
Yeah, so when we started last semester, we all learned every single part of how to run the storm shelter, and one of the biggest aspects was the screen printing. And there, as we learned before, we thought it was just, put the paint on and put the screen on. Yep. But no, there's a lot that goes into making the screen and putting on the paint on the screen.
Yeah.
And then making or buying the shirts, then making the logos and printing them. There's a lot that goes into it as well.
So with the inventory, are the two of you and probably other students, are you all involved in that process as well, as far as the purchasing and the keeping of the inventory, and then it gets here and then it's purchased? Talk me through that process of all the things that you're working on.
So we have different, you kind of could say departments. We have people who kind of stay mostly here in the store. We have a store manager, assistant store manager.
Okay.
There's people who are mainly out in our manufacturing room. So everyone kind of has their own thing. But if we get a custom order for maybe a club, we did B club shirts. They tell us kind of how many shirts they need, what they want the design to look like, and then we go and purchase the shirts. We put the design onto a screen, and then we just print. And sometimes things don't go too well, and because screen printing is a tedious process.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
There is.
I've seen the process.
It's a process, yeah, for sure. But we all get there at the end of the day, and it always turns out pretty good.
Yeah, there's you have to be precise on every shirt. It's just a constant flow, and so you have to really pay attention to all of that. So I know that it's not just the two of you. So how many students would be involved in this class, and then also involved in the Entrepreneur 2 class, and who's involved in the storm shelter? Because I appreciated you identifying, Andrew, the different departments that are all involved. So approximately how many students are involved right now?
I would say about 15.
Yeah.
15
Okay.
students.
15 is about a good estimate.
So that's probably, that's our whole class, and our whole class is involved in the school store and the storm shelter, and they're all in different departments, like what Andrew said.
Yeah.
So there's also a marketing team, so about 3 to 4 kids, and they create T-shirts to sell, and there's a finance team that does, as you were talking about, inventory and invoices and anything to do with finance. And we have, as you said, the manufacturing and the screen printing, as well as we have 2 store managers.
Okay.
So yeah.
Where does the social media part involve? Because I've been following you on Instagram, and we'll get a shout out. I saw you had it written up there, storm.shelter on Instagram.
Yep.
It's really cool stuff there. Is
Yes.
that part of the marketing?
Yes,
Yeah.
our marketing team does all of that. They create the social media posts. They create any new logos for T-shirts and merchandise.
Yeah.
They do all of that in that aspect.
All right, so let me go through this list of departments here. So we have store managers, we have a marketing team, you said manufacturing, we have finance, who I'm sure is dealing somewhat with the inventory and stuff as well. Any other aspects of the storm shelter that, we should highlight?
I don't think so, really.
That's a lot right there.
That covers most of it, yeah.
What have been some of your biggest takeaways? So how long have you been involved in the storm shelter? This entire year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what have been some of maybe your aha moments or takeaways of things that maybe you didn't realize as far as running a business?
Just kind of the process behind, like we mentioned, screen printing it is a process, and it does take a lot of time. There have been times where we have to come in on days where we don't really have class just to we did state basketball T-shirts, and there was
over 200 T-shirts. We needed to come in Saturday and print all of those before Monday.
Yeah.
And because we had a lot of people that wanted to buy them.
Yeah.
And we had some difficulties with purchasing, so we had to come in on different days. That's part of business.
200 T-shirts, that's a
Yeah.
number.
That is.
It was a lot.
And I know just the way, athletics operates, it's, you have at best a week
Right.
to get this done.
Yeah, because we didn't even know, like, the idea popped up in our heads. We were, like, sitting just in class one day, like, well, what if the boys win? Like, we should do T-shirts, because at this point, we didn't even know if we were making it to state or not.
Right.
And then they won, and we're like, okay, we need to get on top of this. So we had to
Yes.
talk with the athletic directors to make sure, like, they were okay with it.
Yeah.
And it was quick, but it was worth it.
Yeah, there's a lot of communication that goes on with outside people, so the athletic departments and the principal and school. So that's kind of what you were going back to, what my aha moment is, how much communication actually goes on outside of our classroom. So
Yeah, you can't just operate the storm shelter within your 50-minute time period.
Yes.
Has it become somewhat of a hobby for the both of you? Alina, I'll have you go first. I mean, you kind of identified you're doing work outside of your
Right.
classroom. Is that just sort of the norm, and now it's part of your daily flow?
yeah,
or
I think so. Thinking about like other classes, it was like homework. This isn't really homework. It's like it feels like you have a responsibility. Like this is a real business, and
Yeah.
you to play a part in this real business. And if you don't get your job done, then the business will falter, and you need to keep it up.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Alina on that one. We it's a lot of outside work. Like I have a lot of emails that I have to read sometimes at night from, it could be anyone. Just doing a lot of stuff like at home or just whenever, that if I know I don't do, it's not going to be the best. And yeah.
Because there's a whole team that operates, not just you as an individual.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
don't want to let anybody down.
Yeah. So now are the both of you part of the marketing team?
No, I'm actually the CEO. That's like my
Yeah.
title. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
the
and
CEO does everything, and
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
get the marketing job.
Yeah,
They're
I'm-
responsible for finances. They have to do podcasts.
Yeah.
Now, did you run doing this podcast through your marketing team? Did you have to seek approval from them in order to do this?
No, I think you sent us that email, and I think it was a great opportunity, and I'm kind of glad we're doing it, so we kind of just ran with it.
Well, I appreciate you were both very prompt in your response, so I appreciate that as well. So, Alina, you're a sophomore, and Andrew, you're a junior.
Yes.
Are you going to continue this? I mean, obviously this year, but next year, and if so, what changes do you hope to implement for next year?
Well, I'm not actually sure if we can take the class again. I have talked to Mrs. Schiefer about it,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure if that's like an option.
There's an option for Entrepreneurship 3 where you create your own business.
Yeah.
And so it's like a step
Okay.
up. Yeah. So once we've learned how to run a business, every aspect of it,
Yeah.
we have the opportunity next year to create our own. And yeah, that's something that I think I'm going to look into.
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet 100%, but it sounds really.
And so I'll go back to something that I said before. I've been part of a photography business, a small business, and just locally, and it was with my wife and I, and it was amazing we got into it for the love of photography, and we did some video work and stuff like that as well. But you quickly find out that you're always purchasing things and balancing a budget and figuring out what income is coming in versus what is going out, and Alina, you nailed it. The communication is absolutely huge. Just constantly emailing and working with clients took up almost more time than the actual photography part of it, and I can imagine that is the same here.
Yeah.
What has been the response of students? So you're open during, this time frame, which, we closed it down to do this podcast. And then is it after school?
So we're open during fourth period, which is when we have the class, and then we're also open during plus period.
Okay.
So if students want to come in during plus period, they can. And we get pretty busy during plus period. A lot of people coming in to buy a couple snacks, maybe get a cup of coffee or whatever. A lot of teachers like to come in here and get coffee as well. So
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, and we used to do morning and even during lunchtime, but because of the pandemic, COVID, we don't want too many people roaming around.
Right.
And,
No,
yeah.
all the mitigation
Right.
steps that you have to think
Yes.
of.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit about So there's the screen printing part of it, and that could almost be an entirely different podcast going through that process. And I've seen the machine. It's it's an industry standard type machine. It's top notch. But I've noticed that you have other things in here as well from a lot of really cool looking woodworking. So are those students a part of this class, or do you work with a different department at Ames High in order to get some of those things? Oh, actually, I'm looking at these tables. We can probably see them on video here. Just top quality work. And so how do you work with, those departments to get this inventory into here?
Yeah, we try to work as much with the other departments as we can. A lot of the stuff back over there was from like last year. And then these tables are recent. We just try to involve as much of Ames High as we can.
Listen, I love putting logos on things. Just in my position, I mean, I put the logo on nearly everything I can. It just sends a really cool message as far as Ames High pride. I mean, I put that on everything as well too. What has been the response of students? Do you find, obviously they come in for coffee? Have you seen more of like the apparel that you've worked on around the building?
Oh yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Everybody, a lot of people, almost every single student has something from Ames, especially those basketball shirts. Those are a big hit.
Yeah.
And so I think the storm shelter is a really big hit for students and teachers as well.
Do you constantly get pitched ideas?
Like from the students?
Yeah, from students or
teachers?
Staff or teachers.
Yeah. We've put out ideas, and we've gotten a lot of feedback, and that helps us with what we want to make and what they're going to buy.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Create something or make something that they're not going to sell. And
yeah. I mean, that's part of the business process right there is you want to get a sense of what you can sell
there's
in order.
A lot of communication with your customers too. For
sure. Absolutely. So what's on the horizon for the storm shelter? Are there any like new things that you're, taking a look at based on feedback or just, brainstorming?
Yeah, so Mrs. Schieffer, she teaches the class. She just received a pretty hefty grant. And so we ordered a lot of new equipment that we're, I think, expecting to see soon. Yeah. Some like iPads to do like graphic design stuff for like T-shirts. Yeah. We are getting
merchandise stands.
Yeah, we're getting like a big kiosk. So we like to sell. We like to do pop-up shops at like football games and basketball games. Yeah. So having that would be really nice. Some more crickets to like cut out vinyl designs for some of our T-shirts because we don't do just screen printing. We also do some like heat press and like vinyl T-shirts.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I think we're expecting a lot of those soon, and I think it's going to be pretty fun and exciting.
I love the pop-up store ideas. You wanna catch people when they're in the moment of wearing branded items, and so I think that's just an incredibly smart idea.
It's also great advertising too for the storm shelter.
And absolutely, it's a great way to reach to maybe some parents who can't come into the high school and buy our clothing. We can bring it out to the football games while they're there to watch the team play. They can buy a T-shirt or buy a stadium blanket to wear or whatnot. So it's pretty nice. Very
cool. Well, I want to thank both of you, Alina and Andrew, for being on this episode of the Amazing Education Podcast. When we launched this podcast, well over a year ago, I always envisioned talking with students, and so I want to thank you for being so prompt, getting back to me, and being willing to talk about the storm shelter. I'm really excited about it. We're going to help promote it as a district, and I just want to thank you both again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you.